noswaith dda, ac i'n cored Cathy Augustine ydw. I a thi ydy is gadair iddw I Pwyllgor Trosolwg a Chraffu Economi a Chle. Can I welcome everyone to this evening's multi-location meeting? The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, as usual, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available? We did a test on those before we went live. For those attending on Zoom, please select your language of choice. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those on Zoom, it's much easier for us here in the chair if you use the raise hand function. We'll do our best to alternate between speakers in the chamber and on Zoom, and I'm lucky enough to have both Jane and Dawn here helping me to ensure that we take contributions in order and fairly. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. Committee members attending remotely, please do leave your camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of our decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, pop a message in the chat function so that our Democratic Services officers are aware, and then also let us know when you return and switch your camera back on. Thank you. We expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately, to be respectful to each other, and that applies to members, officers, and anyone in the public gallery, although I'm not sure we do have any members tonight. Due to the nature of the business of this committee, feelings do often run high, and we do have lively debate. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do expect us to have just the one debate and to have that through the chair. If you have a pressing need to discuss any issues with a colleague, please either wait until the end of the meeting or withdraw from the chamber. I wouldn't want to embarrass anyone by challenging any side conversations. Diolch yn fawr. And now we go on to the agenda itself. And do we have any apologies?
Yes, we do, Chair. Councillors Keith Eales and Mike Priestley.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Can I remind members that they must declare the nature of any personal interests? Louise?
Hi, Noswaith.
Councillor Louise.
I have a holiday let that pays business rates, so I will withdraw when agenda item number 9 is discussed.
Thank you. Item 3, I'm not aware of any urgent matters unless they're
Urgent matters, Chair.
No. Item 4 is to go through the minutes to approve and assign as a correct record the minutes of our previous meeting. So that's on pages 4 to 10 of your pack. Were there any comments, queries? Sorry, Gail. Councillor Gale.
Thank you. In the minutes, so there is no record that when we were discussing the active travel that the public would be consulted again. Dullan Jones did actually say that public will be consulted again when they've gone back and done some work on it, but there's no record of that in the minutes.
Hi, Councillor Gale. Yeah, we'll take a look at that, and if it needs amending, we will amend it. So we'll need to go back and check the recording, and then if it needs amending, we'll include it in for you.
Okay, I think it's at the 2-hour mark, apparently.
Thanks, Gail. Okay, we'll take a look.
Thanks.
Thank you for raising that, Councillor Gale. Any other queries? Do I have a proposer? Yeah, Councillor Tom, seconded by Councillor Louise. And are we all happy? Can we show of hands? Yep, you got everyone online.
Yeah,
thank you. They are carried. We now move on to the minutes of various local area forum meetings. So Local Area Forum South on pages 11 to 13 of your pack. Councillor Nia Owen will be giving those to us to note and to highlight any particular issues.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Gadeirydd. Dim byd i dynnu sylw ato fo, felly dwi'n hapus i gyflwyno y cyfnodion fel rhai cywir. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you. Those are purely for us to note, I believe.
Take a proposer and a seconder.
Oh, yes, okay. So a proposer and a seconder for these as well then, please. Nia has proposed. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tom, thank you. And show of hands. That's carried, thank you. Local Area Forum Central, pages 14 to 17 in your pack. Do we have Councillor Cheryl or Councillor Chris Hughes? Yeah, Councillor Chris, will you present those for us to note, please?
Yeah, Chair, I'm happy to present the minutes of the Central Area Forum and move that they're a correct record.
Lovely. Are you proposing those, Councillor Chris?
Yes, I just did, Chair.
Lovely. And a seconder?
I will second, but I've been asked to note that we have asked for the results of the active travel, which we are still waiting for.
Yes.
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, I am chasing this up with the cabinet member and officers, and as soon as I've got a date or some information, I will share it with you.
Thank you very much.
Chair.
Thank you. So you're seconding on the basis that that amendment will be looked into. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yes, show of hands then, please. They're carried, thank you. Local Area Forum West, pages 18 to 20. Oh, sorry, Councillor Chris, you wanted to come back.
Yes, Chair. It was on the last item in response to Councillor Gale's request. Councillor Cheryl and I received email correspondence from Geraint Edwards this afternoon confirming that the report is now ready and will come to the Local Area Forum at our next meeting.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you. So Councillor Gale, you're happy with that? Excellent. So I can now move on to Local Area Forum West, pages 18 to 20. Do we have the Chair, Councillor Sharon, or the Vice Chair, Councillor Anne, to present these notes to us? No. Have we got Councillor Sam, who I believe Councillor Sam is a member of this committee and also, I believe, a member of Local Area Forum West?
I am indeed. Councillor Cathy, yes. Yeah, I'm happy to present for approval the minutes of the Local Area Forum West, which took place virtually on Tuesday the 30th of January 2024. Everything should be reasonably self-explanatory. Obviously, we know the position now with Bodlondeb. There was an update from Bryn Island regarding the Coast to Valley active travel route, and there was some discussion around liaison with the cabinet member for cabinet member Chris Cater, and liaison with local area forums and town and community councils. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Do we have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Louise, thank you. And a show of hands to accept those minutes. That's carried. Thank you. I'm not aware of any questions to cabinet members. No. Item 7, to review our forward work programmes. So this is our grid of works on pages 21 to 31 of your pack. The combined forward work programme follows on pages 32 to 55. And please can I remind members only to raise issues that relate to the remit of this committee. Thank you. Dawn is going to present this item for us.
Thank you, Chair. So evening members. So following on from our last meeting, I've now met with James Harlan to discuss the forward plan for the LDP reports, and these are now scheduled between June and July. Obviously, the dates are still provisional as the committee timetables has yet to be agreed by council. There will be a need for a special meeting for the deposit LDP, but that should be around sometime late summer. So I'll advise you when I know more. In addition, we've had to schedule the following additional items on the forward plan, and they include closure of the town regeneration programme boards. The proposal is to subsume the work into the local area forums. So that report is due to come in April. And then there's an update on the local toilet strategy scheduled for May. So that's my update, Chair.
Thank you. So are there any thoughts, any comments on our forward work programme relating to the remit of this committee? I can't see any hands or any questions. So may I have a proposer for those two parts of our pack? Councillor Nia and Councillor Michael Smith. Thank you. And show of hands. That's carried. Thank you so much. So we now move on to item 8. This is a councillor call for action. This is one of the channels through which elected members can bring something to a committee, and it's explained within the pack how that all works. So I am going to invite Councillor Louise Emery to present this call for action in terms of the context and content. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scrutiny Committee, for listening to our councillor call for action. As you can see from the agenda pack, we've been quite persistent about trying to help the residents of the Great Orme. So if you look at the actual call for action, it is around there being no regular pre-gritted route serving the community of the Great Orme in Llandudno. And as we all know, most of that, to get down into the town, it's one very steep, narrow road, Tiguin Road, which is the only route out for most of the residents. We've had informal discussions with officers or members, informal discussions with cabinet members, and Llandudno Town Council have also written to officers, and I believe the leader as well, and cabinet members over a number of years to try and get a regular, as part of the gritting service. Now, obviously, the issue is that we are a second priority. We're not a first priority road for the community on the Orme. And I think the argument is around whether this is a distinct community. So I know there's other communities across Conway that do have pre-gritting, because otherwise they would be pretty much abandoned and they wouldn't be able to get out of their village. And I feel that the Great Orme is essentially a little village on the top of Llandudno, and it is a distinct community. And it does not take a lot of ice, very little ice, for there to be accidents on that road. And even when there's comments from the officers about the steepness of the road, that the only thing that will do when it is gritted is a tractor. So it is an incredibly steep road. And I think the debate is around whether it is a distinct community, which we believe it is. And if that one road isn't gritted, then the bus doesn't go up, the subsidised bus service doesn't go up, and people are literally stranded for even for a minor, it doesn't have to be persistent extreme conditions. And then people do try to get to work, to get their kids to school. And the number of cars that have rode into the house up by the traffic lights, if you know the Orme, is absolutely numerous. And obviously this has been alerted not just to county councillors, but to town councillors. And we feel, representing our residents, that it needs to be seen as a distinct community and needs to be part of the pre-gritting service. We're not asking for every road on the Orme, really just the main steep road, Tiguin Road, should be gritted when there is a bad forecast for ice or snow. So I don't really want to say any more, because I know we have a representing the Llandudno Town Council, Greg Robbins, here, who can add to our concerns. So thank you.
Diolch, Councillor Louise. I'm sure a number of elected members feel for you, because a number of us have very similar issues. So I'll bring in Llandudno Town Councillor Greg Robbins to speak now for 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously this is a matter that's been going on for a considerable amount of time. It's been a source of considerable correspondence, as included in your agenda pack today. The reality is that this is a proper separate community. It really is. And the access up to that is intensely important to everybody who's up there. There's also a pupil referral unit up there. And of course, if there's no access up there, that again causes knock-on issues. But the reality is this community, with the ice up there that can form and does form, obviously, really prevents any safe access. And there's a number of elderly youngsters, etc., because of the diversity of people who actually live there, which are approximately 500. We've been told time and time again that if it's forecast there'll be heavy, there will be conditions that cause this, it will be pre-gritted. Again, it doesn't seem to happen, it doesn't seem to work. Like this year, it didn't happen. Indeed, somebody who's a highly awarded St. John's responder ended up crashing their vehicle trying to return to their home on the Great Orme. We need to find a solution for this community because it's not acceptable that they are isolated and treated almost like second-class citizens. The Town Council has again written to ERF, to Mr. Wilkinson, and asked for a conversation moving forward. We really do believe there is a plan to be put in place between every stakeholder here, not just the County Council, to see what else can be done to make this more resilient and give us the opportunity to serve this community properly and give them the access as best as possible, but certainly better than they're receiving now. So I hope this council backs these moves and helps get this community back within our whole community of Conway and not isolated at the slightest bit of bad weather. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Councillor. There are a number of options open to us as this committee. Before we go into that, I would really like to invite Councillor Goronwy Edwards, the Cabinet member who has been involved in these discussions thus far. We also have officers here to help us respond. We've got Andrew Wilkinson and Simon Billington. Thank you for joining us this evening. So over to you, Councillor Goronwy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for not being in the meeting live. I'm busy in the middle of lambing season, and unfortunately I can't get a friendly midwife to take on my role this afternoon. So I will comment. There's a whole pack of information and correspondence in the emails going back to January 2019. The circumstances on the Orme haven't really changed over those years. The situation is still the same. It's still a very steep hill, and it is, for the reasons given, not a suitable hill to take a heavy gritter on, because the steepness of the hill, if you put a gritter on that hill and it does go out of control, it would cause could cause immense damage and even risk to life of not just the operative, but anybody or any building in the path of that vehicle losing control. Even a tractor going onto the Orme is putting risk, because I have tractors, I have steep hills in my area. I wouldn't dream of going on a icy hill with a tractor because they even less traction than a four-wheel drive lorry. And that's a proven fact. So there's been many calls to have this hill gritted over the years. There are the options there of grit bins on the hill where residents can access the grit bins and grit the hill as and when they feel appropriate. Now, many of us in this meeting will also live in communities where there are steep hills, and there have been cries from all those communities over the years to be included in the primary gritting routes. Now, I myself live on top of a very steep hill here in rural Conway, and so over a quarter of a mile long, and we have far more severe frost because we live up in the hills. Now, I will personally go out when we have the frost and use the grit in the bins and grit the whole of the hill, which is over a quarter of a mile myself, for the benefit of the community that lives higher up than me. And likewise, the residents of the Orme have that same opportunity with the grit bins provided. I'm surprised by the call and the people that signed it, because I had discussions with Councillor Mandy, and she accepted the rationale of why we do not grit that hill because of the safety implications of actually putting grit on it, because it does give you the impression that once it's been gritted, it could be safe, but it could freeze at any time, and the vehicles then using that hill could be at even more risk. So if we want to open the debate and look at bringing this into the secondary grit, into the primary gritting groups, I'm sure the whole of the county would like to have the same opportunity. There are places like Llafechan, Penamawr, Trefu, Conway, Betrecoed, the whole raft of the villages that would probably like to have their routes gritted. Of course, we don't. That would be a massive financial burden on the authority at a time when we don't have those resources. And also, I hear the plea from Councillor Greg Robinson, who also held this portfolio many years ago, or a few years ago, and I think Andrew Wilkinson gave the rationale why we don't grit the Orme. So can't understand quite why, if it was so important then, why they didn't choose to grit it during his term as the cabinet member for the area. But there are sound reasons in the back of why we don't grit them. If the scrutiny committee wants us to look at gritting the Orme, I would suggest that most of the whole gritting routes would need to be looked at throughout the county, which would cause an awful lot of work for our officers, and probably be a financial burden that we cannot afford. So happy to answer any questions, and the officers are here as well to contribute to any questions raised. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Goronwy. I have got a hand up in the chamber. Do either of our officers here want to respond at this point, or will you take part as the debate progresses?
I think we'll just wait for questions, Chair. Diolch.
Thank you. So I'll bring in Cynghorydd Nia.
Diolch.
And then Councillor Simon. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Ia, dwi'n meddwl bod fi'n mynd i ategu lot o be mae'r cynghorydd Gronwy wedi ddeud yn barod. Fel cynghorydd yn ardal wledig Llanoged a Meunan, dwi'n cydymdeimlo efo sefyllfa yr aelodau sydd yn cynrychioli'r gogarth. Mae trigolion Llanoged a Meunan wir wedi gorfod ymdopi efo sefyllfa yma ers blynyddoedd lawer, ac wedi dysgu fyw efo fo, wedi dysgu sut i ddefnyddio trwy gilydd y biniau grit ar ochr y ffordd ac yn y blaen. A dwi'n siŵr y bysa'r cynghorydd Liz yn dadla dros elldydd enfawr trefryw hefyd, efo poblogaeth mawr iawn yn byw yn yr ardaloedd yna. Ond os oes yna benderfyniad bod ffordd Ty Gwyn ar y gogarth yn mynd i gael ei halltu neu gritio yn y dyfodol, mi fyddai'n disgwyl bod y ffyrdd gwledig yn cael yr un triniaeth hefyd. Mae'n iawn. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you, Councillor Nia. Councillor Simon.
Yeah, diolch, Chair. A question, isn't the idea with gritting that you grit before the ice forms in order to prevent afterwards? So in other words, before the ice is preventing the gritters getting up there. Just a question, that's all.
Thank you. I think Simon Billington is about to answer. Yes.
Yeah, that's entirely right. We grit, or we aim to grit 2 hours before the temperature reaches 1 degree, and when we know that the temperature is going to drop below 1 degree. I think the issues that we generally experience up on the Orme are not necessarily related to ice. It's more when we get some light snowfall or freezing rain, or sleet and hail.
Thank you, Simon. Councillor Croft, are you happy with that response?
Yeah, that explains a bit. It does sound like it's possible to do a sort of preemptive gritting then before even the snow comes down, like we do on the main roads. Might be possible. I do have an issue with certain roads in the Colwyn Heights, which are not priority routes. including the bus route, which is not fully gritted, which does pose a problem up there. I know it's nothing compared with the Orme, but it's something I have had raised with me.
Thank you. So Councillor Goronwy, you wanted to come back in at this point. You're on mute, Goronwy.
I think
Yeah.
Simon has given the explanation on when we grit, ideally before the frost actually sets in. The issue on the Orme is because of its location close to the coast, in a reasonably milder climate than many of the areas up in the rural areas. It's very infrequent that you would need to grit the Orme at all. So, you know, to do it on a regular basis would be a waste of resources to start with, and not practical.
Thank you. Have we got any other members of the committee who want to speak? Otherwise, I will bring in, I'm going to bring in Councillor Harry next, and then Councillor Charlie to sort of summarise. And also I've got Councillor Sam. So Harry, then I'm going to take Sam actually online, and then Charlie, if that's okay.
Chair, I'm happy if Sam would like to go first as a member for committee.
Okay, Sam, yes, you go first, then Harry, then Charlie, then we'll see if there's anyone else online, and then Tom. Okay.
Thank you, Harry, for allowing me to go before you. I was just a bit confused by Councillor Goronwy's last comment about the roads. I see the gritter going along the main road here through Degamway because it is a main road. It goes into Llandudno, presumably comes out the other side, goes along the promenade or down Mostyn Street. So I don't understand why a population of around 400 or so people on the Orme would be left isolated when the gritter is going past major routes to ensure that places near to the coast, such as Degamway and Llandudno and Penrhyn Bay, are clear for traffic. And also in the responses that the council have, the officers have sent previously, I think there's something in there about ensuring that the residential estates, so main access roads into residential estates, are clear. Most of those estates will no doubt be on lower ground, and in a better position to get out even if the roads were icy. So I don't know, and I understand the position with not taking heavy machinery up there, but is there anything that can be explored to see what other methods are available for the road up to the Orme to be gritted before any bad weather? Because we know the roads are gritted here, as Simon's just said, 2 hours before. So the Orme is in the same position. Surely they know they're going to have ice or snow at the same time as we are, and highly more likely to have it than I am in Degamway. So I just wonder whether there's anything else that can be explored around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sam. I saw that Simon and Andrew, one of you wants to respond to that immediately. Is that okay, everyone?
Yeah, I think we just need to remind ourselves as to how we identify what a priority gritting route is. So we have some criteria for how we identify our priority 1 gritting routes. These are based on national guidance. So these are based around guidance that we receive from well-maintained highways, a code of practice for well-maintained highways. So priority gritting routes are the A55, the A5 and the A470 trunk roads, class 1 county roads, so that's A roads, other important county roads, which are through routes with high volumes of traffic. The Orme doesn't qualify for that, or they provide at least one access to centres which respond to emergencies or receive emergency admissions. So A&E hospitals, it doesn't qualify under that, and they are county class 2, so that's or class 3 roads, so that's a B or a C road, and which provide at least one access to towns and villages. Teagwyn Road doesn't fall into that category either. So therefore, if we are following the guidance that the winter weather plan that we have, which is based on national guidance, then we shouldn't be gritting on a proactive basis upon the Orme. What we have committed to do, though, is we've committed to deploying a tractor-mounted gritter when we do deploy agricultural contractors, so that's third-party contractors that we have to undertake secondary gritting routes, and that tractor is deployed from Llandudno and is able to go and undertake snow and ice clearance upon the Orme. I think, as Councillor Gronwy said, there are sort of a very large number of very similar places across the county, and if we were to deviate from our prescribed policy, then we would also need to look at other areas along the same lines. I think the issue that we have, just in respect of Councillor Sam's comments there, we need to remember that our gritting fleet, it's not designed for single carriageway, very urbanised areas. We operate a series of either 18 or 26 ton 4x4 and 6x6 gritting vehicles because they need the traction. So these are large, oversized vehicles. They're not your standard LGV. You know, they're bigger than a bin wagon, and quite often, depending on the prevailing weather conditions, they'll also have a snowplow fitted that extends sort of 3, 4, 5 feet in front of the vehicle as well, which we can't sort of readily take off and put back on just to access some estate roads. And it also has a salt spreader that's projected from the rear, so the length of the vehicle, the size of the vehicle, the width of the roads, it all adds up to sort of a very imperfect position.
That's great. That's very comprehensive. Thank you. So Councillor Sam, are you content with the technicalities behind that comprehensive answer? Thank you. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Harry, Councillor Charlie, Councillor Tom, and then Councillor Gwennol. So Harry, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the other members that have contributed to this so far. I think there's been some interesting points made. Funnily enough, before this meeting, I was thinking that perhaps there will be some other communities in Conway that face similar challenges. Your ward of Penmaen Mawr sprung to mind as one, and Simon Croft's ward in Rue, which obviously covers Colwyn Heights, has crossed my mind previously. So I think that there's probably a balance to be made here. I take on board Nia's comments that some rural communities or some more isolated communities will not have that gritted access. Funnily enough, having looked at the map for priority routes, I can see that there are some that do have it. There may be good reasons why some have it and some don't. From what I can see, Henried has 2. From what I can see, particularly if we look at Penmaen Mawr for ward there, you've obviously got Penmaen Mawr, you've got Dolgafulki and Capilillo as 3. I would have thought distinct parts of that ward, and both Dolgafulki and Capilillo as perhaps the smaller parts of that ward are served as well. So perhaps that there might be some work to possibly be done at just looking how some of these priority routes are identified. I do take on board the points made by Simon Billington that we follow national guidance, but perhaps a review of these things at some point might be useful. Just to pick up the point about the use of gritting equipment used, and I take on board what's been said, that these vehicles aren't really designed for use on urban single carriageway roads. Well, Brynny Road and Great Ormes Road, funnily enough, just round the corner from my house, are single carriageway urbanised roads, and the gritter goes straight down them and then turns off along Gladwell Avenue and then heads out of Llandudno via another direction. So I understand that there are challenges, but I wonder whether or not we could find a way to be a bit more flexible. I'm conscious of the point that Councillor Greg Robbins made on Llandudno Town Council, that perhaps there's a discussion to be had here with other stakeholders. I don't know if Llandudno Town Council is in a position to look at providing a sort of financial support for this. I'm unaware if that's been considered, but perhaps that's a discussion to be had. And I think around the potential financial implications of reviewing our gritting policy, maybe there is potential to look at working with town and community councils on routes that are of particular concern within their area. I know that this council has in the past offered supplies of grit to town and community councils for hand distribution. So maybe there's something more that can be done there. I'm not a member for committee, so obviously I don't get a vote, but I'd be grateful if perhaps the committee could consider asking Cabinet to look at this, talk with Llandudno Town Council, see if any support could be forthcoming from there. If that's not possible, fine, but I'd like to see it explored as extensively as possible.
Thank you. So I will sum up with some options that we can consider at the end of the debate.
Fantastic, thank you, Chair. I'm conscious there's been some comments made about financial implications. I'm sure if this fell entirely on Conway's shoulders, there would be financial implications. But we've just seen with the budget we've set this year, even in challenging financial situations, we invest in important services where they are needed to be delivered. For example, replacement bin collection vehicles, which I know personally are incredibly important to ensuring that our residents actually have their bins collected. This is falls within the same service area as this. So I wonder if it could be looked at. Perhaps if it had to result in a revenue business case, that would be considered in the round amongst all the other competing financial priorities of the council, and it may be something that may be supported or not. But those are my comments. Be really grateful if it could be considered. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor. So as you kindly mentioned my own ward as one that has a number of challenges, I have noted over the last couple of winters that I've been around here that there is very prompt response to the need to refill grit bins, for example. That is done sometimes within hours. And people do go out and grit the roads that the gritter cannot get onto. We talked about a tractor-mounted gritter that we might use in certain circumstances. But before I go back to Simon, who I know wants to respond to some of Councillor Harry's points, I'm going to bring in our leader, Charlie, on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me speak. Just talking with my finance portfolio head on, I think clearly budgetary concerns are always an issue, but this goes back a lot further than our recent trials over the last couple of years. And I think it's important to remember that it's not just a pure pounds and pence issue. It's about manpower and the ability to mobilise people of sometimes quite short notice to keep essential routes open. It's not like refuge collection. You're right, Harry, we have invested in that, but that's something that happens day in, day out. We have to find a workforce to do the gritting lorries. You've got to find workforces to do the additional tractor routes. So it's quite a complex thing. And I wouldn't think it's just, for people think it's just purely down to money. If we go to the next tier where we're looking at secondary routes on a regular basis, that's a substantial challenge to find the actual people to do that work for something which, we do live in a fairly mild climate. I'm not saying it's not debilitating when we do have ice and snow, but it's a relatively short period of the year. If anyone who goes skiing will know it's amazing. They've got fleets everywhere and snow plows, but that's because they invest a lot of money because they have to, or else the whole place is paralysed for 4 or 5 months of the year. So it's just having that. It's not purely about the finance per se. It's about the other complications of actually manning the service, Chair.
Oh, thank you for raising that, because resources are, of course, not just money, and we need to take that into account. Simon, did you want to come back in on something Councillor Harry had raised?
Yeah, it's just in relation to Great Ormes Road and Brunei Road. So they're also the A546, so they are Class 1 county roads, so they would fall into priority gritting routes.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just really further to your own comments as well, Chair. We have over 800 salt bins that are out in the county. It takes a substantial amount of time, effort, resource, and manpower, person power, people power to keep on top of those. But that is generally our priority. When we are in an inclement weather situation, it is 24/7 gritting, and those that are not deployed on gritting are generally on other works, such as maintaining salt bin provision. And because we know that it is vitally important for those who are not on our priority gritting routes to have ready access to grit bins.
Absolutely, yeah, and that is much appreciated, I know. Thank you. So I will bring in Councillor Tom, and then we'll finish with Councillor Gwenol. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I think listening to members, I think nearly all of us could think of a handful of roads in each of our wards where we'd like to see more gritting. I have particular concerns about how we grit access to schools and the risks that are associated with us not gritting access to schools. I'm also particularly concerned about communities being isolated, and I'm sure the rural members will know that better than I. So I think myself as a member, I'd be reassured if we at some point looked at reviewing how we prioritise those roads and whether there is a way that we can look at providing better access to some of those more isolated parts of this county. I think supporting this is the right thing to do. I appreciate that there's salt bins and that they're well stocked and the team do an excellent job. But the fact that this issue has been ongoing for so long and has been repeatedly raised by ward members and the town council for a number of years, I think speaks to the fact that the residents there don't feel like that service is enough, and that there are still issues and that there are still safety issues there. So I'd be inclined to support this, and for us to look at some point in the future, perhaps if it takes a bit longer, so the financial cost of doing such an extensive review is spread out. But I, as a member, would welcome a review of how we prioritise those roads and whether we can reassess how we prioritise roads to give better access to important services like schools and to combat isolation for more isolated parts of the county. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. So you are advocating for a broader, much more generic look at how we deal with these issues.
Yeah, I'd be supportive of us moving forward with this and adding Teigwyn Road to be gritted more regularly. But on the back of that, I would be comforted if we looked at a more broader review to address some of the other issues that members have raised in their wards. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I'll bring in Councillor Gwenol now, and then I don't know if Goronwy, would you like to come back and sum up, or shall I hand over to Simon or Andrew to do that? Goronwy.
I'm happy to respond.
Sorry, was that Goronwy? You would like to sum up? Fine. So Councillor Gwenol and then Goronwy to finish us off.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Gadeirydd, am ganiatáu i fi siarad, ond nad ydw I ddim yn aelod o'r pwyllgor yma, ond dwi yn teimlo bod hi'n ddyletswydd arna I fel cynghorydd ar un o'r wardiau mwyaf gwledig yn Nghonwy, sef Uwchaled, I siarad ar y pwynt yma. Mae Uwchaled yn aml iawn tua 4 gradd yn oerach na'r ardaloedd arfordirol yng Nghonwy, a chwyden ni yn cael rhew sylweddol pa ma hi'n rhewi. Mae gennym ni un cymuned, sef Cwm Penaner, sydd yn 5 milltir I ffwrdd o'r brif ffordd sy'n cael ei greanu. Mae pobl yn yr ardaloedd gwledig, maen nhw'n defnyddio eu synwyr cyffredin. Maen nhw'n gwrando ar ragolygon y tywydd. Maen nhw'n parcio eu ceir ar lefydd sydd yn gallu lle medra nhw gerdded atyn nhw os ydyn nhw'n gorfod mynd I weithio. Chybod, dyna da ni wedi wneud ar hyd yn hoes, da ni'n defnyddio'n synwyr cyffredin. Mae gennym ni'r agri-contractors yn yr ardaloedd gwledig sydd barod iawn i ddod allan pan mae yna dancer llaeth, enghraifft, angen cael ei wagu mwyn, chwod, fel neu siwrna dydy'r llaeth ddim yn cael ei ddifetha. Lle'ch sicrhau chi os bydd pobl cymuned Cwmpen Aner yn clywed bod y gogarth yn cael ei greanu o'i blaenau nhw, mi fydd yna goblin o helynt, mi fyddwn ni'n hefyd yn mynnu bod pob un ffordd yng Nghwmpen Aner a llefydd tebyg yn Uwchaled ac ardaloedd gwledig eraill yng Nghonwy hefyd yn cael ei greanu, ac wrth gwrs mae hynny yn afresymol. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Gwenol. So I'll come back to Gronwy to reply.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's been a very useful debate, and thank all the members for the contribution. I haven't heard anything that alters my opinion of the situation. Whilst if the members feel that we need to revisit it, there will be a time, a officer, and probably a financial issue around that. But as far as I'm concerned, in an area where, as I say, I quit the highway by my entrance, and it could be up to maybe for the whole week or 10 days, because I don't expect special treatment, and I could be locked up here for up to a week if I didn't do that. So a short snap of a few hours on their own, where people can get provisions in and they have the ability to grit themselves, because that's why we put the bins there, doesn't really justify revisiting the whole of the gritting regime. But I'll leave that to members to decide whether they want ERF to do that, but certainly it would be a challenge.
Thank you, Councillor Gronwy. So having heard the debate, it sounds to me as though, well, I know a lot of members have similar thoughts and issues around protecting their residents in the way that has come to us from a specific group of people for a specific area. So I suppose it's up to us to consider whether this call for action is based on exceptionalism. So is this an exception that we have to look at, or is this something that is common to a number of ward members and we deal with it in the best ways that we can? There are a number of options open to us. Number one, we can determine that this is a complex issue that requires further investigation, and we can commission a scrutiny review of the issue. We've heard that that will take resources, and those resources include money as well as staff. We as a committee can, number two, we as a committee can write a response and make recommendations on the councillor call for action to a relevant responsible authority. I will ask Dawn to give us a bit of clarity on what that.
In this instance.
Okay. In this instance, that would be writing a response from this committee and taking it to Cabinet to decide. And number three, we as a committee can decide that given all the points that have been covered, further action is not appropriate, and give our reasons for that. So those are really the three options that we have. What is the clearest and best way to vote on that, Dawn?
You need a proposal from somebody.
Okay, so do I have a proposer for any of those three? Councillor Nia.
Hoffwn i gynnig opsiwn 3, os gwelwch yn dda.
Do I have a seconder for option 3? Can I see it? So option 3, is that Goronwy?
No.
Oh, no, you can't second. So that was to decide that further action is not appropriate and give our reasons for that. Councillor Allen, you are seconding that one. Thank you very much. So do we vote on that?
No, I think Tom's got the.
Okay, so we've got option 3, proposer and seconder. And Councillor Tom.
Yeah, can you just go through option 2 again? I believe that best fits with the comments I made earlier, but I just wanted to clarify, please, Chair.
It's for this committee to write a response and make recommendations on the councillor call for action to Cabinet.
Yeah, I believe that probably fits best with the comments I made earlier, Chair, so I'm happy to propose option 2.
And I'm happy to second that.
Yeah, I'll bring Dawn in on those.
Can I just clarify the actual, what you want to do? Is it the broader review or specific to the Greater Orme?
I'm going to say both. It's that this committee supports prioritising T Gwyn Road and also would encourage a wider review of how we prioritise roads to tackle isolation in rural parts of the county.
Thank you. And just for completeness, option 1 has not been proposed or seconded. That was to determine that this is a complex issue that requires further investigation and for this committee to commission a scrutiny review of the issue. However, I think with the slight amendment that we've made to option 2, that is already covered. Yeah. So we've got 2 proposals on the table. The first one we will take was proposed by Councillor Tom, seconded by Councillor Louise. We've just been through that. And could I have a show of hands in favour of option 2? Six, seven. 7 in total, and then we do abstentions and against. Yes, and against that one. 4, 5. 5 against. 5 against. And I don't think that's any abstentions then. No. No. So we don't do that one. Okay, so that one is carried and that will be reflected in our minutes and Dawn will help us take that forward, I'm sure. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So thank you, Councillor Gregg, for coming in and speaking to us. You're obviously welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting or leave us to get on with your evening, whichever you prefer. Okay. Right. So we're not doing too badly. Item 9 on my agenda is due to start at 6:20. So there we are. Very good. So Councillor Louise has left as she said she would in terms of her interest in this matter, which is the second homes and short-term holiday lets options report on pages 85 to 141 of your packs. So this is quite a big chunky report. And I will invite Councillor Charlie McCoubry, leader and portfolio holder for finance and finance strategy, to present this. And we also have Carol Evans, who is our senior planning policy officer, who will provide the detail for us. Councillor Charlie.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Just to be clear, I'm standing in for Councillor Chris Cater, who is the portfolio holder for this work, which is part of the replacement local development plan. A close relative of his has a second home. So he had to declare an interest. So I've been called off the subs bench, but I will endeavour to do my best. This will form part of our replacement local development plan going forward. It's really important to note that we're not being asked to make a decision on Article 4 at this stage. We're just asking for being included. So there's the opportunity at a later date to make a decision if we think that's a sensible thing to do. So an Article 4 essentially is a planning restriction. At the moment, if I decided to sell my house, well, if I decided to turn my house into a holiday home, I could do that tomorrow. If I decided to sell it, anybody buying it could decide they wanted that to run that as a holiday home as well. We know in some areas of the counties there are significantly high concentrations of second homes, which is causing an impact on our housing market. From memory, 47% of holiday homes are in bands A, B and C, which is our most affordable properties, but it's not a uniform problem across the whole county. With an Article 4, there's the opportunity in very specific areas to make that a restriction, that if you want to turn it into a holiday home, you would require planning. A lot of other things are similar to that. My whole life as a dentist, if you wanted to open a dental practice, you had to get planning permission to convert it from a house to dental practice, similarly with retail. But it would be quite a big step to do that because there's a lot of implications around that. There's a lot of restraint. If I want to sell my house and I can't sell it because the person wants it to be a holiday home, then that could be a problem for me. So there's a lot of complications there. And as you say, it's a very, very lengthy report. Some counties are further ahead of us. Gwynedd in particular, you will note in the report it talks about the need to gather more evidence. There's how would we apply it? Do we want to apply it? If we did want to apply it, where would we apply it? When would the thresholds kick in? So it is very, very complex. But option 2 is essentially about keeping that option open, that when we've got better evidence, better data, we can see how it's worked elsewhere or not, as the case may be, then we would have the opportunity as an authority to reopen this, to discuss it and see whether we want to apply it in certain areas or not. If we don't do that, then there's no option at a later date to apply it. So it is a contentious issue, and there is things that people will be very keen on supporting, things that people think are a really bad idea, but today really is not the time to debate that, if that makes sense. It's just giving us the option at a later date when we've gathered more evidence and we can be clear it's what we want to do or not want to do. Sorry, so that's a long, convoluted way of saying we're just keeping our options open at that stage, which is option 2. So diolch Gareth.
Yep, that makes total sense. Thank you so much. So shall we ask Carol to fill in any detail at this point? Is Carol there?
Yeah, I've got a few slides on a PowerPoint if I'm all right to share.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carol.
I'm hoping that's showing somewhere now.
Yes, we can see you're sharing your screen.
Brilliant. So yeah, so as the leader said, this one, it's an options report for progressing the new planning powers. There are other powers available to the council, things like the council tax premium, the changes to the number of lettable days. There's also land transaction tax and a new licensing scheme's on its way being introduced. So the report does cover those as well. So in terms of the new planning powers, I'll start by explaining what they are. So we have some new use classes. So previously, all the dwellings were included in that class C3. So that one now is just for the main permanent or full-time residences. C5 is one of the new classes, and that's for second homes. And then C6 is the other new one, and that's for short-term holiday lets. Currently, you don't need planning permission to switch between these, but we can remove those rights with that Article 4 direction. So once the direction is in place, it only applies to new changes of use. So any properties already in place as a second home or holiday let wouldn't need to apply for planning permission. So this slide then looks at the process involved to introduce an Article 4 direction. So first we'd need to designate an area. That needs to link to the evidence base. So it could be a community council, or it could just be a cluster of streets where there's a localised concentration. It could also include a buffer to help avoid moving that concentration to the neighbouring areas. The direction would need to specify which changes were no longer permitted. So we could cover changes from C3, those main homes, to C5, second homes, and C6 holiday lets, but allow changes the other way to move back into that permanent residential market. So there's two types of direction. The first is with immediate effect, so it's in place as soon as it's announced without any public consultation, but the council could be liable for compensation with this one. The second is a direction with a 12-month notice. That involves a public consultation on the relevant documents in the evidence papers, and the council isn't liable for compensation through this route. So in terms of a policy that would go into the new replacement LDP, it would set a threshold where we'd start refusing planning permission. So if an area is below that threshold, it would be granted. It could set other criteria for things like parking, bins, impact on residential amenity. It could allow holiday lets in some circumstances, for example, where it supports rural business. And then this policy would only apply where we go through that separate process for an Article 4 direction. And then linked to this one, there's another 2 policies that we're also progressing through this work area. So where we have an Article 4 direction in place, we would need both of these, but we could also include them independently. So the first is a condition on new build dwellings for them to be used as a C3 main residence only. Where we apply this would need to be linked to evidence base. It could be a specific area. It could be for certain development types. There are some negatives with this. It could affect financial viability of schemes. That could mean less affordable housing on sites. And planning enforcement have advised any breaches would be difficult to prove and enforce. The second then is restricting new builds to residents with a local connection. So we'd need a cascade similar to the affordable housing ones to widen to other eligible households in case that a local one can't be found. So this one could help with delivering small-scale affordable schemes in rural areas. But again, viability could be impacted on the larger sites, which could mean fewer affordables again. So where we introduce an Article 4, it needs to be supported by data justifying it. So finding reliable data that's updated regularly is difficult for this one. We think the council tax and the non-domestic register is probably the best source for it. But the background evidence will need to look wider than this and look at other sources as well. We'd need to look at setting a threshold where it would kick in, where we'd start refusing planning permission. The report looks at a couple of options. One is linking to that LDP dwelling requirement and allowance for churn, but it doesn't really link with any negative impacts on the community. The other is to look at studies done elsewhere, and they've found that once levels reach around 10 to 20% in a community, they start having a negative impact on that character of an area. So this is what Gwynedd have done, and they've set their threshold at 15%. So we've got one community council at 15%, and that's Brogadmon. So the map here shows which communities are above 10% overall. And it shows really how important it is that we don't just rely on those thresholds, that we need to consider the neighbouring communities and potential impact on them, with Dolgarrog and Llanrwst there showing to be below at the moment. The other issue with this approach is that it hides those small localised clusters. So if we were to progress an Article 4 direction for this, there are costs involved. There's the public consultation itself to run. So each house in the area would need a letter sending with the consultation details. And it's important to note that once a direction is in place, planning permission is needed, any applications are exempt from paying that usual planning fee. So it's a significant piece of work for us in policy to gather the evidence and run the consultation, but then also for development management to determine applications and enforcement cases. And so it may be that new staff are required. There's also a risk for judicial review, both for the introduction of the direction and then any refusal of permission that follows. There's quite a few risks involved, in part because it's such a new policy area. No one's got it in place yet, so we haven't got any experience there to turn to. We currently have a policy vacuum in Conwy, with no policy in our adopted LDP to help guide any planning applications, and there's nothing in national guidance either. If we were to go ahead, the policy team would need to divert resource to public consultation and the evidence base. That would mean less staff time being spent on the replacement LDP and potential delays. There'd be a higher caseload for planning applications and enforcement, so that could lead to delays there. There's a risk of appeals for any refused applications that would take time to deal with, and there's a potential for costs to be awarded against the council. Judicial review, which I've already covered. Then displacement, where potential buyers of a second home or holiday let would look at a wider area outside of that Article 4 direction. It could bump up concentrations in those neighbouring communities. If we do progress, we need to make sure we've got a sound evidence base for each community. The shared settlements, so those that are split by the Aruri National Park boundary, depending on where the park progress their Article 4, there could be an inconsistent approach to planning in those villages. Housing market changes. So as it's a new policy area, we don't know how it will impact the housing market. It could lead to lower prices overall, or it could mean that second homes and holiday lets become more exclusive and they can ask for higher sales prices, but the permanent residences come down in price. That potentially leaves homeowners in negative equity. So it could have a negative impact on tourism, particularly if we set that threshold too low. And then the last one, human rights and discrimination were raised in the Gwynedd consultation. So there's 5 options in the reports, and all of these would need evidence base to justify. So the first is to do nothing. As officers, we'd have concerns with this one. Really, it's just in there for completeness. We have enough evidence to show that this won't be an appropriate approach. Option 2 is the one we're recommending, and it's to progress a policy framework in the replacement LDP with potential for a direction to be included after adoption, once the plan is in place. Option 3 then is a small private area linked with the national park. Option 4 is a larger area covering more of the rural communities. Option 5 is a larger area again for the whole plan area. So we as officers, we've got concerns with options 3, 4 and 5, and the risks that I've just covered increase with that larger area. So in terms of recommendations, in the report, they are to progress option 2 through the replacement LDP framework with an annual review to see if that remains the right approach. To note the staffing and costs involved with an Article 4 direction, to note the potential risks involved, and to note the other policy approaches for inclusion in the replacement LDP. That's the end of that one.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Carol. That's really helpful to clarify a number of issues that there are before us. Councillor Michael Smith has got his hand up, but I wondered if I can see that James Harland is with us, and I wondered if James wanted to add anything at this point, or will you be staying so that you can respond to any questions that come up, James?
No, thanks, Chair. I think, yeah, well, just a quick one really. It's probably just to bring in, I couldn't see that you could see me because I couldn't see my video, to be honest, but it's just to fully understand that Welsh Government have pretty much set out quite a strong kind of approach to how we deal with second homes and short-term holiday lets in the future. And there are 4 key areas, which Carol did mention briefly at the beginning. So one of them is around the council tax premium, which we're already seeing quite a significant impact really in some settlements of how that's had an impact on second homes and short-term holiday lets. The other one's around the land transaction tax, which is coming through the political process at the moment, and there's consultation out from Welsh Government. And the other one is around licensing, and that will likely to be introduced by the end of this year. And the licensing issue is quite important because that will, in effect, monitor the licensing and monitor the short-term holiday lets in particular, and how long they have been used, for example, and whether or not they can cross over to business rates and claim business rates and business rate relief. But yeah, the key thing for us is around the policy vacuum. From our point of view, is we'd like to bring in an Article 4 now, but we're not really in that position to do it because we don't have a policy in place to, in effect, where the Article 4 will sit. If a planning application comes in that area, are we in a position to then appraise that planning application once it's live and it's coming through the system? We're not. That needs to come through the new LDP process. So from our point of view, is what Carol's presented is kind of the best case scenario under option 2, in that we can monitor the process, we can progress the policy through the deposit LDP, and we can start to bring in Article 4 areas where we know there are key issues. But at the same time, we can keep an eye on what's happening in Aruri, and so with their shared settlements, and also keep an eye on Gwynedd and what's happening there with some of their challenges that are happening as well. The other thing I wanted to mention, Chair, sorry, just quickly, is that we had a meeting last week regionally about this issue. Most authorities are not taking forward Article 4 areas. The only ones currently that are considering it have made a decision to make that is Gwynedd and Eryri, and ours that we are considering today. But there's a key link there in terms of displacement issues from the authority related to Eryri and related to Gwynedd as well. So yeah, it's just to give that overview really, Chair, and the implications of that linked to what Carol's just presented.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that additional context. Thank you. So there are 3 hands up at the moment, 4. So I've got Councillor Michael Smith online. I've got Councillor Sam Cotton online, Chris Hughes online, Paul Lacock in the chamber, and Simon Croft online. So rather than alternate, I will go in order and add Councillor Tom to the list also. So Councillor Michael, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And thank you to Carol and James for bringing this, and for Charlie for introducing it. For me, this is important that we take this forward into the RLDP. As Charlie has mentioned, this is for us to consider at a later point, and it is quite important for our residents and those business people who run these short-term holiday lets to have the opportunity to consult on it, if that is where we take this. Without including it in the RLDP, we're not going to move forward with the monitoring of these types of properties. And so for me, I support the recommendation of option 2, which is from the advice of our officers as well, who have looked at this. We can learn from our neighbouring Gwynedd community, and we can see what else comes of this as it progresses forward. But without including it in the RLDP, we just do nothing, and that doesn't benefit any of our residents. So that is my proposal. I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say on this, but for me, it is the right progression, and I look forward to seeing how it does move forward, if it does, following tonight's discussions.
Thank you, Councillor Michael. So you are proposing that we accept the recommendation and support option 2?
That's correct.
Lovely. So before we continue, I will look for a seconder for that, please. Yes, that's Councillor Neer. So we've got that. Thank you. And then go on to other contributions. The next being from Councillor Sam.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officers for their report. I was more than happy to second Councillor Michael's proposal. This sounds like the policy we've been waiting for, to protect rural communities. Aaron and rural members for many years have been talking about how depleted housing is in their rural communities. I can also think of Conway Town as an example of properties that turn overnight into holiday accommodation. So hopefully that will protect properties within the town of Conway. I just wanted to ask, I'm not quite sure whether I've understood it correctly, but if an Article 4 direction is introduced into a specific area, and it all goes through the process and everything, people will then, if they wish to change the use of that property into a holiday home or a second home, they will need to make a planning application, and that will go through the normal planning process. There's no automatic, you're in an Article 4 area, so you will automatically be refused. Is there an option for those to be considered on their merits? And also, my second question was, why would it be exempt from a planning fee?
Thank you.
I can come in there, Chair, if that's
Thank
okay.
you. So I could see James nodding and I will just bring him in. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the first question. So basically what would happen is we'd have a kind of criteria-based policy. So depending on the impact that second home or short-term holiday let has on the community is what will be assessed. So it could be parking, it could come down to bins, those sort of issues. But also what it comes down is kind of the impact it has on schools, health, those sort of matters as well. So all those will be taken into account when the planning application would come in. In terms of the cost implications, that's a Welsh government issue really, because there's a compensation issue related to it. Then we're not in a position to ask for any money for the planning application or charge for that planning application. It's purely a Welsh government approach because we are permitted. It's a permitted development usually, and we're saying no, that's not the case anymore. Then therefore we can't ask for those funds as part of it.
Thank you. Thanks, James. Sam, are you happy with that response?
I am, but I've got the laptop open here and I've just pulled up Article 4 direction, and I notice that a lot of councils in England are already applying these, and they can apply them to areas, for example, where HMOs pop up. And we've already discussed that policy previously for another route. But they are charging for planning applications. So we're not, because that's a direction from the Welsh government. Is that correct? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah,
I do believe that's what James did say.
Okay.
But if you want to clarify that, James.
No,
Yeah,
it's pity, really.
Yeah, there are two issues. I think where authorities are bringing in an Article 4 now, they probably have a policy in their current adopted plan where they can apply that to. We don't have it because the plan was adopted in 2012, where the issue around second homes and short-term holiday lets was not an issue. Gwynedd do have a policy because they adopted their plan a lot later than we did. So we're now looking at obviously reviewing ours with deposit coming this summer. But when it comes down to the cost implications, it all comes down to the fact that because in the use classes they can change the use, we're pretty much saying to them, you can change the use, but it's only where it's permitted. We're now saying that permitted rights are no longer the case. You have to apply for planning permission, and because we're doing that, there is a compensation issue potentially, and therefore we can't ask for those costs related to the planning application. That just comes through kind of case law as well.
Okay, then thank you.
Thanks for that question, Sam, and thank you, James, for your answers to that. So I now have in order Councillor Chris Hughes, Councillor Paul Luckock, Councillor Simon and Councillor Tom. So Chris Hughes.
Thanks, Chair. Good. I found this a really interesting read, going backwards and forwards through the different pages and understanding the diverse issues that are affecting each individual community. And I can clearly understand that there potentially does need to be an Article 4 direction. And I think the option 2 is the one that gives us the flexibility to do what we need to do. But I'm also conscious of the fact that, for example, as has been said before, in Conway, you've got a huge number of properties that have been transferred over to second homes and to holiday lets, which is having a second homes is having a negative impact there. Whereas I was in Llandudno recently in an evening, and I was walking down Mostyn Street, and I noticed there were almost none of the properties above shops with lights on in the upper floors. And I wonder whether that's down to the fact that it's the season, or whether those properties are just unoccupied. I did a similar piece of work when I was in Colwyn Bay at a meeting 2 weeks ago. And again, I walked down a few streets, and again, noticing that Abergele Road, Conway Road, with plenty of lights on above shops, but roads like Penryn Road and Station Road, there were very few. And so I wonder whether there's almost a need for getting almost down to road by road in some areas, and I wonder whether that was possible within the rules, because as a community that relies heavily on tourism, you know, in some areas we will need that type of accommodation. Whereas in other areas, the priority is clearly that we need that accommodation for local residents because they're being priced out of the market. And at the same time, I came across situations where I've spoken to landlords. They've said our properties above our shops, for example, are empty because there simply isn't a return on bringing them back in as into use as residential properties because of the investment in that it takes to get there, and with fire exits and everything else. So I just wonder whether there is, through option 2, an opportunity to get to a position where we can almost have our cake and eat it.
Well, wouldn't that be nice? Shall I bring James in on that, or Carol, if you have any views? I think a couple of your slides actually related to this issue. How small are the areas that we're going to be looking at, and what are local connections? How small are they, or how broad?
I think that's the thing. I mean, I've looked at community council in the report, and I think if we look then at Conwy at the example, it comes out at 5.1%. But I've done a further bit of work since then, and I've looked specifically at that area within the town walls, and it was more like 25%.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, small clusters like that are hidden. We need to look at that for all parts of the county now as a next step to see where these small clusters are and what the impact of them are as well, because you know, there's a positive of them in terms of regeneration in some areas with those empty properties above shops, those sorts of things. But then we're also hearing from members that there's concerns with parking. So not all of these properties have got their own driveway, so then they're, you know, forced to park either on the street. That's obviously limited in some of our towns. Where else is there for them then? Things like bins comes up as well, and then it's that neighbourhood amenity. So if you're next door to a holiday let, you know, the intensity of that use is very different to a residential property. That's going to have a different impact on your neighbours.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
Yeah, it's trying to capture all of them in a policy and put some criteria together, which will be the next steps for us.
Indeed. Yeah, so it leaves the policy open for us, I think we're saying. And Councillor Chris, if we can be clever about it, then maybe we will have our cake and eat it. So Councillor Paul, then Councillor Simon, and then Councillor Tom. Oh, could you put your mic on, please, Paul?
Diolch. I'm not on this committee, but I was keen to be here tonight because I wanted to understand better Article 4 direction and also have some involvement in the debate and discussion, because I think it's a very big and significant issue for the council overall. And I've got a specific question which I'd like to put to Carol or James, but it's complex, this, because there's lots of factors involved. Now, I fully understand Welsh Government and Conway's vision, in a sense, or objective, to, in a sense, incentivise second homeowners and short-term holiday let owners to sell property, in a sense, to local people, and particularly local people in terms of low income and low wealth. Because I'm very conscious, and we haven't mentioned it tonight, the recent housing market assessment report for Conway, where we had indications that 46.7% of first-time buyers and newly formed households are priced out of the market, both to rent and buy. And the assessment that we use indicates that 31.5% of new households could only afford social housing rents, and only 15.2% are able to afford low-cost home ownership intermediate schemes. And I think that's a significant factor and piece of data and detail that I would like to be included in any further report that comes forward. I'd also like to see more information in terms of impact on Welsh language, because I think everybody in the council and our vision for Welsh language means that we need to take that into account. I would also like some hard data on the visitor economy, because obviously, yes, we want to incentivize the sale of homes or houses or accommodation to local people, and particularly low income and low wealth people. But we've got to also factor in the visitor economy and what all that means, because I'm very conscious, even in these, not just Eryri, but our own areas, there are massive issues about even finding the staff to maintain our visitor economies. You know, we all know, even in the height of summer, some pubs, restaurants, cafes don't open all the time because they can't staff them. And people who own accommodation can't find cleaning staff or maintenance staff or whatever to keep the buildings going. There's all those issues which we need to take into account. I'd also want to see the definition on what other negative impacts are, because I think we need that information. As James has said, we need to fully understand the impact of the council tax premium so far, and the new land transaction tax and the licensing. So all of that's got to be sort of taken into account. And I suppose the question that I thought sitting here, this is going to be costly. And I was thinking it's going to be costly because do we even have the software that sort of can collate this information, or are we going to have to go away with other councils and do a whole lot of new sort of coding to get the data manageable to, not only adopt a policy, but then when we've got a policy, having the evidence when those policies are disputed through the planning process of being able to argue the case one way or another. And so I appreciate this is a first step, and option 2 to me is fine, but I think we need to do a lot of work. And I suppose my biggest, and I fully accept the movement that will occur from Gwynedd and Eryri because of their policies. So I think Conway's just got to do it, but we've got to think about how we actually manage this, because it seems to me, even before we adopt a policy, fiendishly complex to give appropriate consideration to all these particular topics. And I think that's, key crucial work. And obviously, the most important to me is ensuring that if we do incentivize people to bring houses back into the market, particularly for low income and low wealth families, we need to do that and understand how best to achieve that.
Well, thank you, Paul. You've made many, many points. I want to come back on some of them, but I want to bring in Charlie at this point.
Just to entirely agree with Paul, this is a really complex area, so it's why we're proposing that we keep the option open, but subject to further information. I think an area nobody's touched on, clearly there are areas this could be really beneficial, but you are depriving somebody of a right to sell their house to whoever they want to. I could have my house in the market tomorrow. The only person who is going to buy it is someone who wants a second home. Now, I can absolutely see where we would do that, because there would be reasons to do that, but they have to be good reasons, don't they? Because that is fundamental. I bought that house on the understanding I could sell it to whoever I wanted to sell it. So we do have to be careful, because there is a negative, and that's why there's issues around potential compensation. There's issues around we can't charge, because you are taking away a right that someone had when they bought that property. And that's not something you should do lightly. because it could be challenged under legal. So it is essentially about keeping options open, but it is something we have to be very careful about making a decision on. I expect that to be, if we ever get to that position, a very long and lengthy debate, because if we don't apply this appropriately, it's unfair on the people who's having the rights removed. It could have potentially knock-on effects. It could have potentially negative effects. But as Paul said, what they do in other areas affects us as well. So it kind of is one for another day, and that's why I'm supporting option 2. But I totally recognise all the concerns that are raised, and also the potential benefits of having an Article 4 in the right area under the right considerations, Chair. So thank you.
Brilliant. So I don't think anyone can now, after the debate and the presentations, underestimate the complexity of this.
Just ask if Carol or James could say something.
I am going to bring them
Yeah.
in.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just going over a few
Yeah.
things, Paul. Okay. I
Yeah.
personally wanted to respond to your question about the housing report. So that report that you mentioned is coming back to this committee in April, I think on the 17th. And although Katie Clubb is not new to the council, I think this is your first visit to our Economy and Place Committee. So welcome, Katie. And of course, Katie has come to help us with housing at a time of absolute crisis, and I'm sure we'll be all over this report. And so we'll probably see you again on the 17th, if not before. So absolutely, I was going to bring Carol back in because I think her slides covered, maybe at a slightly higher level, a number of the points that you brought up, Paul, and that Charlie built on. So Carol, would you like to come back on that? I know James also has been putting his hand up there.
Yeah, that's fine. I had to leave the meeting. It crashed on me, so I missed some of what Councillor Paul says. But I'll go through what I heard, and then someone can let me know if I've got any gaps then. So that first one, the LHMA that was mentioned, is actually a national guidance that's one of our key evidence bases for this piece of work. So we would definitely be making reference to that. And planning policy, we're jointly preparing that document with housing. So I've been heavily involved in all the data and bringing that one forward. In terms of the remaining sections then, if you like, of the new background paper that we'll need, it will cover comprehensively the impact on that community. So the Welsh language, obviously for the rural areas in particular, it's got a key impact there because you need to retain your young population, your local population, to make sure you've got that language thriving. The other then is the community facilities. So we'll need to look at schools. We'd also need to look at things like libraries, because if they haven't got a threshold population, they can't stay open. And then the other negative impacts on those facilities, things like shops as well, where they're not able to open all year round, which links then with the visit economy, which I think you mentioned, but absolutely then waiting as well for the council tax premiums. So that's one of the monitoring indicators that we've got, is how many second home premiums we've got and how many holiday lets on that non-domestic register, but also the vacancies. So we keep an eye on that on an annual basis to see how that changes. So we've already seen how the premium affects that. So there'll be further changes now, I would have thought, with the new premium kicking in. So yeah, so the report, that it'll be me pulling it together with all the data sources. So I think the evidence paper for this one will be long, and it will cover a lot of different sources, just to try and capture all the impact, but also the size of the holiday let market, because the NDR does only capture part of it. I think there's more informal uses there that aren't necessarily picked up. So I hope that covers all the points.
So there was a point made coming back from the complexity. Do we have all the tools and perhaps software that we need to gather this all together and slice and dice it in a way that will be pertinent to where we go next?
I think we've got the skills in our staff and also the data available that we can pull that together, we can analyse it, that we can come up with a policy then and robustly demonstrate it and meet all those planning requirements. We've got tests of soundness that we have to meet as part of the LDP. So we're well used to making sure that it is a sound basis. So yeah, I think we've got what we need between us. Gwynedd
fantastic.
Have progressed something similar already, and then Welsh Government have been assisting as well with their data as well, which is obviously helpful.
That's great. Thank you, Carol. James, did you want to come back with anything now?
No, Chair, I think to be fair, just to say that everything that Paul mentioned is yeah pretty much covered within the evidence base to some degree, and that's what we're progressing, in particular around the Welsh language impact, around the churn and the impact potentially it has on the economy as well within town centres or whatever. So and then the impact it has on tourism, the impact it has on the economy, all that gets taken into account as we progress the policy really. So yeah, everything is included within the background evidence base, and we need to progress that as part of it as we progress the policy in the Article 4 areas. So they will be taken into account.
Lovely. Thank you, James. So Councillor Simon, thank you for being so patient, and then Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Cadeirydd. Yeah, I think some of the council have previously stolen my thunder on this. I was going to ask about what the shortcomings are in our intelligence base for this. I take it that it's because people do not have to inform the county when properties are let and when things are made into second homes. I'm not sure what the requirements are on landlords and property owners to report to the council, and it's certainly if they don't have, we don't have a statutory duty to tell the county about it. It would be very useful to have something like that. And if we did have some kind of intelligence that, for instance, was monitoring rental agency websites for what properties are being let in the area, and certainly in the whole of North Wales, I think that would be a very useful resource that other counties might be in North Wales might also be interested in paying for. And I certainly agree with the other point that Councillor Chris was making about empty homes above commercial properties. We certainly need more tools in our bag for dealing with those and requiring commercial property landowners to report the state of their properties and what residential accommodation is actually being in use, because it's a crying shame to see all these properties empty, and Llandudno is very bad, and I quite agree with I'm really glad that he's actually been doing some surveying. I was thinking doing the same kind of thing myself. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And now Councillor Tom.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I stepped out briefly, so please forgive me if my question has already been answered, but I just wanted to ask something and then come back if that's okay.
Of course.
So just from my understanding, on page 118 of the pack, figure 4, there is a table that breaks down the number of dwellings in the county by area, and then breaks it down further by the total number that are unoccupied, and then proceeds to break it down between vacant second homes and holiday lets. I wondered, am I correct in thinking that the vacant homes are long-term empty properties? I just wanted some clarity on that before I came back.
Can Carol or James help us with that, or maybe even Katie? I do know we have an empty homes team, but I believe it's only now one person. So that is a huge monitoring exercise. Carol or James, do you have an answer for Tom?
I do, yeah. So it's
great, thank you.
The vacant, it's not everything on the council tax register. It matches with a census definition, just to have some consistency. The 8.9% allowance is from the 2011 census, so I wanted to match to that. So it doesn't include students, and it doesn't include people who are away with the armed forces, and a few minor things like that. But generally, it's any vacant property. So that includes the long-term empty premium, but also the shorter-term empties as well.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that is very helpful. Thank you. I do have some concerns regarding the implications of this policy, but I appreciate that option 2 gives us the chance to go away and get more information before making a more informed decision on this. So I'm quite supportive of that. If you would indulge me, Chair, I just wanted to slightly pivot the focus just a little to talk about those vacant homes, because from my understanding, the the real drive behind this is, one, to help us solve the housing crisis we're facing here in the county, but also to help us protect local areas and the identities of particularly rural areas in the county. And just from reviewing the data, it looks as if in many of the areas, both urban and rural, that number of vacant properties is higher than the number of second homes and holiday lets. So I think if we're going to look at this area and say we need to take this very seriously to solve the housing crisis we're facing, we need to look at it from all angles, including the number of vacant homes that we have. So just, again, indulge me a little, just moving slightly off topic, I would be really interested in delving into that vacant number a bit more to see how many are RSL-owned homes, how many are long-term, etc., because I think we could do with a more targeted approach to bring in certain groups of empty homes. And yeah, you beat me to it about our new housing strategy officer who's joined us here today, so I'm sure me and Katie will be talking about that again. But
I'm sure.
I just think if we're going to drive forward and say we're going to take it seriously and try and fix the housing crisis, we need to look at all of the elements of where homes are being held up, not just second homes, not just holiday lets, but also these vacant homes as well. So I'd be really interested if we could have some more information on those figures. And also, I just wanted a point of clarity if one of the officers could come back to me. I know we have an empty homes team, and I know previously the authority has given some type of loan or grant, but on the Welsh Government website, it doesn't list this authority as being included in the Welsh Government Empty Homes Grant Scheme, which can give a grant of up to 25,000. I don't know whether that's an oversight on the part of the Welsh Government, but I'd be grateful for some feedback outside of this meeting just to clarify that position there. Thanks, Chair.
Sure, thank you. Councillor Aaron may be able to help you, actually.
Yes, I can answer that question. And sorry, I put my coat on. It's very cold.
It is chilly. It is chilly.
Yes, so we haven't previously taken part in that programme because we needed match funding. But when we set the budget a few weeks ago, we have agreed capital funding to match fund that. So we will take part from the next financial year.
That's great news. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Aaron. Happy, Tom?
Yeah, I'm really happy with that. So thank you very much. It was just more information around the detail of that number of vacant homes to split it down between long term, but also between RSL owned and.
And I'm sure that will be looked at. Katie, did you want to come in at all? Just wait for Dawn, because you won't be on the live stream.
Sorry, I'm a newbie. You can't turn your microphone on. It's embarrassing, isn't it? We do have that information, and I'm wondering to avoid it being a separate issue. Another report that will be coming through in the next few months is the new housing strategy, and that would inform a lot of information around the empty homes. But I do know from looking at target setting work, which is scheduled for next week for discussion, empty homes is a strategic target. It has exceeded its target for the year that we've just done. So there's been a real increase in terms of those empty homes back into use. So I know that will be shared at some point as well. But obviously we could bring some separate focus around empty homes if that's something that will be of interest. But I suspect it will probably be covered quite well in a presentation that we do around the housing strategy.
Fantastic, thank you. Dawn, did you want to come in? No? So I think we're probably ready to vote. We had our proposer and our seconder for option 2. Everyone's clear. That was a really good debate. I learned a lot from that. Thank you, everyone. So I'll just ask for a show of hands. Everyone in favour of pursuing option 2? Three in the room.
6, yeah.
So that is 6 online, 3 people in the room, and I think that is all the members of the committee who have managed to stay with us. And Councillor Aaron has actually reminded me how chilly it is. So I think the heating has been turned off. So thank you very much for staying through that debate and making it a really rich discussion. And that is the end of our meeting. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks,